And they basically said, yeah, you can expect no extra money, no extra investment, nothing positive from this at all. But you can absolutely be sure that Britain and other European countries will face an even higher level of attack than Canada has faced under NAFTA, the North American version of this. So basically, on all of those fronts, the environment has had it. If you were interested in the slightest in trying to do something about climate change, forget it. If TTIP comes in, it trumps all of those things. And the final thing I'm going to say before I'm going to go on is basically this is the next year in which we've got to stop it. They're going to try and wind up all of the talks by the end of Obama's presidency. That's their idea, and then they get it into the ratification process. So this is the time where we're coming together. We're going to have a big presence in COP21. I'm sure that's maybe the sort of stuff we can put on the flip chart later as to exactly what we can all do about it. But certainly the COP21 demonstrations, the big sort of social forum that's going to take place around it, has got trade, TTIP and all these things as one of its big focuses. Because forget all of your national attempts to try and solve the problem. If you've got a massive trade treaty which trumps it from above, we're screwed.
So that's my question, really, because if COP21 goes ahead and it does come out with some, really useful climate change legislation, which is an international document signed off by the UN and all the contributing governments, does TTIP even trump that? Yeah. Right. So what's the point in going ahead?
I've got a really basic question. Why on earth would any government want to sign up to that?
So many reasons. I mean, there's firstly great to be. I mean, I think I'll tell you how conservative, but also when we worked with Vince Cable, who in the previous administration was the guy who was actually responsible for fronting this, we said to him, "Okay, let's put all of our differences aside. You tell us, Vince, what possible argument could you give to us as people?" Not as businesses, not as shareholders, not as finances, as people. What possible argument could you give us for why this would be good for us? And he said, well, it's good for business, therefore it's good for Britain. And that is late capitalism. That is where the state and capital have united their interests. It's Ralph Miliband, if you want to go back to, the person who's written best. So that's one. If you see the interests of your country as being identical to the interests of capital, it's obvious you want to do this. Secondly, NATO. If you're seeing the biggest threat to us at the moment in terms of strategic geopolitical priorities are to fight IS in the Middle East and to fight Russia in the east of Europe, fantastic. Get that energy sorted out. Get the gas and the oil flooding across the Atlantic. And I've been in Poland in places. They have now got troop movements of US and NATO troops going through the villages of eastern Poland and being welcomed with people waving flags as if it was 1944 in Paris. We haven't been told about that yet. Right. For people in Romania and Hungary and Poland and the Czech Republic, this is absolutely real. They're on the front line. So for their governments, they're saying anything that can help us break our dependence on Russia, we're going to have it as well. So unfortunately, there are a lot of key reasons, and there's a lot of more shady reasons as well. A lot of money gets pumped into the business lobby, which swarms around Brussels. 30,000 business lobbyists surround the European Commission, more than one for every person who works there, and they really call the shots.
I mean, they do, and this is where you start to debate about the EU, but I won't go on totally about that. But I mean, a lot of it's driven by the European Commission, which is the main body in the EU, which is not an elected body, is it? And the European Parliament then they don't even get to see the deal at all. This is the thing. I mean, I remember challenging Linda, what's her name? Our MEP? McAvan. Who was actually a partner of a local Labour MP. And she's sitting saying, she sits on various committees, and the one committee that she quoted at that point was about plain paper packaging for cigarettes. And you think, whoa, come on, this is going to be something that will be wiped out anyway. And that is just fiddling around on the edges of something. They are not in the European Commission, and what's driving the EU, TTIP, are not accountable bodies at all. I mean, they know, don't they, now about this ISDS, which seems so outrageous. I mean, look on everybody's faces. Why would anybody possibly vote this through? And they know that there is protest about this ISDS, and they have fiddled about with it marginally and dressed it up as something different, but essentially it isn't, is it?
Well, it's a gorgeous thing that she actually was in Warsaw the day before yesterday, and she was doing this thing saying, anyway, we've renamed ISDS as, she said, no, that's not what I meant to say, am I?
Just renamed
it. We've renamed it as this new investment called, and it was straight out there. So all the Polish are saying, Sigmund Freud, Freudian slip, Cecilia Malmström, European Commission, sorted. But the other thing on it, about it being anti-democratic, I'm sure everybody in this room will have signed the European Citizens Initiative, this petition which is against TTIP, which is close to 3 million signatures within the space of just a year. If you haven't, warandwar.org/TTIP. Do it immediately. But that, I met with the Trade Commissioner, the unelected, unaccountable Cecilia Malmström at the beginning of this year. The three of us who were granted an audience in her office in Brussels. And I said to her, you know that this is deeply unpopular. There are demonstrations on the streets across the whole of Europe, and of course on the 10th of October, which I'm sure is another thing we're going to be putting down there, there's going to be demonstrations across Europe again. Millions of people are against what you're doing. It's deeply anti-democratic. What do you say to that? She said, I don't take my mandate from the people of Europe. And okay, we're not here to talk about the EU referendum, but just bear that in mind. That is what we are talking about when it comes to these institutions.
I think some of you have had quite an informative sort of period of time now. The ones who perhaps didn't know much about it, I'd be interested to know, are the ones who perhaps sort of lesser knowledge. Any sort of comments on it from yourselves about, obviously some of you have come because you've got quite a wide range, some people have come with very little. I'm just interested in generally people's comments about, not have to have in-depth knowledge about it, just sort of gut reaction if you like, what you've heard. Anybody want to kick it off?
Well, my gut reaction is that forever cultivate ignorance. And the fact is the media's also part of the capitalist system, even the lovely Guardian, they have to sell newspapers. And I think part of the problem in this country is the right-wing press, and even the press that's meant to be a bit to the left. It's not in their best interest. You try, in Leamington Spa, my mate, he lives on the streets basically, almost. He earns a living out of getting metal out of skips, right? He's the most socialist person I've ever come across. But he can't get a letter in the local paper now. That's timed up. I used to write letters with him because he wasn't very good at English, but now he wrote really good letters. He's very informed, but he can't get exposure. So what has he done? Given up. And I think that's the central hub. How do you get bloody into the media? I remember times when I was with campaign against climate change, I went every bloody year, and it got to 20,000. It was a huge march, when Bush was there, these sort of days. But they didn't, and they had speakers, and they never got into the papers, And
there is one page that Jeremy Corbyn writes that you might find it. Anyway,
I've got that in that bag.
And the Morning Star ran a specific sort of special section on TTIP for a whole.
Yeah, so your question was, what do people feel after having listened to the presentation? And shell-shocked is shocking beyond belief, and I don't mean that just for dramatic purposes. I thought I was at a 5,
yes,
but I wasn't at a 5 at all. I was at a 2,
I'll come back down
or a 1.5 or something like that. I had no idea of what you were talking about there. So I kind of think, and I'm sure you get asked this question lots of times. So I'll put my question out there, and then just a comment on your point about the media. So my question is, what do we do about it? And I suspect that's the question, because it feels overwhelming. It feels absolutely overwhelming in the way that you describe it. I'm also a school teacher as well as a climate activist, and what's happening in schools in terms of the increased privatisation of the education system and all the things that go with that. So it's not just that business is making money out of it. It's what happens to education, where kind of very narrow economistic imperatives drive the whole education system. Now, of course, they always have done to a certain degree, but not in the way, not in the sense of what's happening now. And it's all about the numbers. It's all about the numbers on kids' heads. What level are they working at? What level are they going to end up working at? And all that has this horror. So, and I feel very worn out after 2 weeks back at work after the summer holidays because of those kind of things. So I was also thinking it through on that level in terms of what happens to us in the workplace, and those kind of ideas that society should be more than about making money and kids' lives should be more than about what GCSE results they're going to get in 6 years' time or whatever. And that people as teachers, for example, got more to offer than just that drive. But that's I was thinking it through on that level. Just a comment, so it is about what do we do, and I suppose it is about how can the movement work together, how can we spread the understanding into wider sections of the movement. So I'm thinking, I know you've done loads of work on this, unions and the climate movement. But just on your point about the media, I think it's there's no doubt about it. We just look at the way the media responded to Corbyn's victory, and you suddenly see these institutions of power mobilising to block change. But it's a very contradictory thing. What I mean by that is the fact that there was that huge vote for Corbyn tells you the processes that are going on below the surface, which the media don't amplify at all. But if we don't recognise those processes as activists, we limit the opportunities of the movement. And I think this has to be one of the most important lessons that we learn from the Corbyn campaign and from other things. The huge demonstration on the 20th, our Time to Act demonstration in March, which was like a tiny little organisation trying to pull off a demo and 20,000 turn up. So I just think we need to not get demoralised and be very. I'm not suggesting that you are.
No, I'm not demoralised.
I know you're not.
I'm trying to
but
be
it's a kind
realistic.
but it is a really important frame of mind.
You know, you're a teacher. I work in a school, right? Top 10%, right? And they got 5% increase in GCSE, and they want not outstanding Ofsted. They want to be inspirational.
Oh, tell me about it. I know. Yeah.
Yeah, what I'm saying is you put structures in place and it controls things. The national curriculum was a way of controlling it.
But my point is more about recognising the processes that are there below the surface that the media don't amplify, which is about a groundswell of opinion amongst ordinary people that this is not right. The world as it is not right, and it has so few expressions to be amplified. But I think if we recognise that that's going on, it should make us bolder in what we do. It should make us more confident, and we should be willing to take bolder actions, even if they don't always pan out in exactly the same way that we want to. I think it could just hold us back, and if it holds us back, then it holds the movement back.
Can I come back to just quickly on that one? Or do you want to come in first? Because I was going to just touch on one specific thing there, which I think was useful, in terms of the way in which there needs to be a popular mobilisation which can sustain the forward motion which brought Corbyn to power in the Labour Party.
Absolutely.
And you can already see the backlash. I mean, already on two key things, on EU and Trident, he's already had to, or at least been quoted in the press as being backsliding a bit on that, because he's come under so much attack from within Labour. He and McDonnell have both come out saying, in the first couple of days since they were elected, saying that they want nothing to do with TTIP. But again, that is not Labour Party policy up to now at all. Labour Party policy has been, we are happy with TTIP in principle. Okay, we want to get the NHS out because we've heard people are unhappy about that. But basically, pro all the way through, as was the SNP, as were the Lib Dems, as were the Tories. It was only the Greens and other more left faction groups.
UKIP were actually strangely
UKIP loved everything that was in it. They loved that it was in it, but they just hated it was Brussels. So I think that
was out, and then they'll do a special one.
So that's really important for us, and I think one of the big things that we're certainly saying, I'm also on the organising committee of the People's Assembly, is that the 4th of October, when we're all going up to Manchester, and to have not just a day of rage against the Tories, but also a whole week of actions. The Monday, you know, Sheffield, Manchester's not far. Take it exactly. Monday afternoon, we're going to do a big thing on TTIP, linking it in with the fight against austerity and for the fight for what type of Europe we want. So 5:30 Central Hall, Manchester on the Monday. I don't know if you've come back, Sheffield, gone back again. That's also really important. But that, you know, for us, it's politics. The only way in which you can start to try and combat this is on the political level. And I think that's what's been great about TTIP, is TTIP's been a campaign which has got much, much further than unions. And unions are all totally signed up and on board with this, which again is not an automatic thing. The TUC has always been pro-free trade, and the TUC has not been in a good position on these things in the past. As a result of pressure from below, all of the unions have now come out in opposition to TTIP. The TUC has been forced to come out in opposition to TTIP. The ETUC is meeting this next week. And unfortunately they haven't come out against it because, you know, they haven't managed to get that far, blah, blah. But that pressure from below is critical. So 4th of October and then the 5th is good.
Interestingly enough.
Can I bring Dick in and then... Yes, all right, go on. I'm sure
We want to fall over it, will we, Craig? I want to come back to Sarah's point, because we need to do two things. We need to understand what they're doing, and we need to understand what we're doing. And there's a couple of books anyway, there's all sorts of things, but I think one of the things about why it's going through on the nod is partly what Vince Cable said, good for business, good for everybody else. But it's also more corrupt. I think it's straight corruption. It's not corruption of give us a fiver, but there's a rotating door between ministers and these businesses, and you see right throughout the privatisation, people who are negotiating with a private body, and then suddenly they're on it. So when they think business, they're thinking, in 5 years' time I'll be a director, pure personal, and they don't see a problem with that. So I think that's their side. As regards our side, I think we, as a collective on the left, have to recognise that all these campaigns that we're all involved with, they're sort of intertwined. I'm here partly because of Palestine solidarity, and TTIP is an absolute direct threat to that. And we'll certainly be pushing for the 4th of October. And that I think it's really important that we recognise, coming back to Susan's point about we can win. The SNP won, and the old Labour Party finished up with 1 seat. In Greece, Syriza won the election way back, when was it? No, last year, wasn't it? January. God, time's moving so quickly. And the Labour Party that was elected with something like 46% of the vote in 2010 was annihilated down to 6%. I mean, and I think Syriza makes the point that the job's not over when you get your, in quotes, left people in. So, that both of those processes are really important. And I think, every single campaign that we're in, we need to open our ears to all the other threads. And our task, I think, is to try and weave them together to make it more powerful and more sustained. The worst thing I think could happen to us is I think it's wonderful that Corbyn got elected. I mean, just like us all, a bit of breath of fresh air and a bit of hope. But if we just sit back and say he'll do it, I think we're in trouble.
Ian, then Carrie.
Oh, you first.
I don't know.
Okay. When I said I was somewhere between 4 and 7, I think it's the understanding of what's on the table is reasonably clear, but it's the process that's going on now. It's difficult to keep track of. And I'm wondering, sort of conversations we've had with our MP, for example, is it clear that this will be put before each national parliament for ratification? Because obviously there's a key period in the next year of trying to oppose and stop the deal. But is there also, it rolls on after that to national focus and really lobbying and putting pressure to stop ratification?
I'm going to bring Kerry in. It's 1:10. If you want to summarise it, yeah, Kerry.
Well, no, just a quickie, really. I found out, I don't know quite who started, one of the Stop TTIP campaigns, anti-TTIP campaigns, and that is getting your local authority, because although local authorities don't actually enact it, it will fairly obviously affect it, and people have talked about fracking just going right over the head of local authorities. But Sheffield is a TTIP-free zone. Well, bloody hell, I didn't know about it until I read it in a TTIP-type journal. You know, the council's not promoted it as an idea. And so, I mean, I think we should grab that. I mean, because, you know, there's no point signing up to something unless you actually do something about it. So I think we should force them, if whoever has signed it, Terry Fox, whoever, he's the environment guy in the cabinet. So, I mean, we really need to, pull out the petitions, pull out people who are committing, really get to know who is on board. And as you said, I mean, link the campaigns. But hell, we are supposedly living in an anti-TTIP council, local authority.
Are there any other contributions? Yeah.
I think there's sort of concern of it being an issue of the left, or sort of Telegraph would say the hard left. Extreme left. I mean, I talked to people, we've run campaigns on TTIP in the past, and I talked to people who don't know what TTIP is. I think the vast majority of people in the country probably don't know what TTIP is. And I don't think I've met anyone who identifies on the left who thinks anything about TTIP is good, other than maybe some Labour MPs. But equally, I've talked to the issue about with Liberal Democrat voters and Conservative voters, possibly even people who voted TTIP, though I think it's very hard right at the time. And I don't think they've really thought anything good has come out of it either. And if you sort of fringe it as a leftish issue and, that in that way, it's detrimental to it becoming something that everyone opposes from the grassroots level.
Totally agree.
Yeah. Right.
Second back on those three.
Yeah.
I mean, you're absolutely right about the process. The idea is, and it's pretty much 100%, not 100%, but we're going to say 98%, that TTIP is what would be called a mixed agreement. And the mixed bit means it's not just the institutions of the EU who get to sign it off, that's the EU Council of the Ministers of State, and it's the Parliament who get a vote, but also it has to come to national parliaments. And that is a big thing for us, because the Greeks have said, right, our gift to the European people is that we will vote it down if it comes to our parliament. But this is going to be 4 or 5 years hence, so we don't know what's going to be. The Spanish elections are coming up within the next 2-3 months. They could return something. There's lots of hope there. But we need to keep pushing at all of those levels. And at the European level, it's not just TTIP. It's also the EU-Canada deal, which is like TTIP's little brother. It's called CETA, CETA. And again, if you go to the website warandwater.org/CETA, you can read a bit more about that and a few more sort of links to that one. Well, we can go on. There's the Trading Services Agreement, TISA, and then you get a bit of acronym blindness. So I'm going to... But there are a whole range of these things which come through. MEPs are the first line of attack. And the pressure that was put on Labour MEPs this July and June, they were going to sign up to a pro-TTIP resolution. They said, we're never going to sign up against a pro-TTIP resolution. They were going to sign up for it. And it was so much pressure put on them that they were actually forced to change and vote against it. And that wasn't just from the left. There are lots of us who maybe sort of feel more at home with being the left, and that's where we come from. But that was 38 degrees. And people who've gone miles broader political remit, who really went for the Labour MEPs. And that was good, because a lot of people who are involved in the trade unions find it difficult sometimes to be nasty to Labour MEPs because they're all their mates. So it was actually really useful to get a broader base to be able to do that. And we managed to shift them. Unfortunately, the German Social Democrats, the Italian Social Democrats have done this foul deal with the Conservatives and the Liberals of the European Parliament so that they hold power in an unspoken coalition together. And so the Italians and the Germans basically sold us down the river on that one. And the vote went through, and so it's another fillip behind the European Commission. But there's a lot to play for in this respect. And in that, I think that the use of these TTIP-free zones is really important because it gives people a very good focus at the local level to be able to work on. And if there's other councils around South Yorkshire, Derbyshire, which haven't done that, you know, they also should be called out on it. There's a lot across the country which are coming out. Unison has been at the forefront of that campaign alongside Global Justice Now, which is one of the groups and the No TTIP Coalition. Hundreds have come out in Austria, hundreds in Germany. But what's also interesting, that's again not just Labour councils either, but also we're trying to expand it so it's not just, again, councils and sort of local authorities. And it goes back to your point, Hugh, about, you know, wanting to get more unusual suspects out. We've got a group called Artists Against TTIP. Again, a bit of celebrity dust in the paper. Meant we had 2 pages in the Evening Standard in London, which got a huge readership, just saying this is why TTIP's such a bad thing. SMEs, the small and medium-sized enterprises, which are going to get clobbered by that. Now, already, again, in Austria and Germany, they've got websites of small businesses against TTIP, which have got hundreds and hundreds of businesses coming out. We are working with Lush, the cosmetics shop, you know, we go past this, you're overwhelmed by a smell of extraordinary soap. In fact, when I went back, we had the launch of a fortnight against TTIP with all the Lush shops. 276 Lush stores across Europe have got no TTIP in their window for the following fortnight. So that we launched that last night. Is there one in Sheffield?
Yes. The main, yes,
definitely go there. And for a mere £12.50, which I'm told is now very good value for a bar soap, for a mere £12.50. It's not a bar of soap. It's a box of shower powder. What's not to like? Come on, you lefties, get real. Anyway, it's all good. So they've got this thing for an entire fortnight, saying, you know, for customers coming in, handing them out lots of information about why TTIP's bad. Jamie Oliver has come out against it as well, because he's, you know, he's put his whole thing about food and that. We're trying to work with these people so that it's not just us, but it actually becomes a broader thing. And then it's not just about TTIP. It's about using TTIP as a vehicle, as a single issue campaign to make people realise the broader issues around where, you know, capitalism is so ingrained in the States, and also then we're looking at the European Union, and we do come back to it. One of the absolutely key reasons that we've got no traction on this is because the institutions of the EU have managed to ring-fence themselves so that they are no longer amenable to outside pressure. And that's what Tony Benn said. He said, you know, I agree, I'm proud to be European. I don't consider myself to be Little England, a British island, or whatever it may be. I'm proud to be European. But when you look at the European Union's institutions, and you see that they don't admit of any challenge from outside, you've then got a real problem of democracy. Because if you've given democracy to a group of people who you can't remove, that was the thing that Tony Benn always used to say, how can I remove you from your position of power if I don't agree with you? If that's what you can't do anymore, then you've got a problem.
Thank you for that. Right, we can either have a discussion now for 45 minutes about leaving the EU or go for lunch. I think we'll go for option 2, shall we? Yeah, thank you very much anyway, everybody. Thank you very much for your contributions.